Jesus has risen, and I will see you on season 4. Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. I'm Raphael and I'm here to review part 2 and the final part of the reunion to the Real Housewives still making excuses for Jennifer Shah of Salt Lake City. So we start the second and last, thankfully, part of the reunion right where we left off with Angie K. LMNOP accusing both Heather and Jen of being in a lesbian relationship, and in her own words, they were Barbie scissoring, and as they were doing that, Jen, she just so happened to kick Heather in the eye, and that's how she managed to get her black eye to begin with. Right. So Andy, he was just looking at NGK like, yeah, you're not coming back for season 4, but why do you think this? Angie K, she goes on to explain, well, I've had a lot of people come ask me about Jen and Heather's relationship and if it was sexual, and then it had me thinking about Jen and Heather's relationship and if it was sexual. So then Lisa, she jumps in it and she was just like, I mean, yeah, Heather, I mean, you did straddle Jen on the couch and it did look a little sexual. I mean, it was pretty iconic, but it does look sexual to us. And I mean, Angie K, Lisa, in the words of Portia, that's a reach. I mean, really, we're grasping at straws at this point because I've never seen both Jen and Heather be together and looked at them and say, maybe something is going on between them. Maybe there is some type of sexual chemistry between them. I mean, the most I've seen Heather be for Jen is a doormat, and that's that. So Heather, she starts defending herself by saying, really, Angie K, really? You've been friends with Jen for what, 20 years already? And you're accusing me and her of being in a relationship together? I don't even find her attractive like that. And I'm like, ooh. You know Jen is going to be watching this episode from her jail cell soon. Like, wow, really, Heather? You don't find me attractive? Just wait, I'm coming for you on season 10. So then Andy, he asks Heather, so are you sure that you're not trying to cover up for Jen and she's not the real reason behind your black eye, Heather? And look at me when you're talking to me because look, I got your contract for season 4 and if you lied to me, it's going in the garbage. So then Heather, she starts getting emotional and starts crying. She tells Andy, no, that's not the real reason at all. The real reason is that I just felt shame that people were going to watch this show and see me getting blacked out drunk and end up with a black eye with no recollection on how I got it to begin with. And I just felt shame, Andy. I really did. I felt so ashamed and disgusted in my behavior. And she starts crying and I'm just looking at Heather like, is anybody buying it? Instead of a bad Mormon, she's a bad liar. I don't believe it. I still feel like something happened with her and Jen, allegedly. And again, her being Jen's doormat, she's going to cover up until the very end. So then Andy, he finally says the words that we were all waiting to hear. And no, it's not the reunion is over. It's Angie K, Angie H, Dana, thank you for coming. You can leave the stage now. And I'm like, yes, yes. They gave them the Escala from the Real Housewives of Potomac treatment when she showed up to the reunion for season 6, and then 2 seconds later, they were like, okay, bye, get off. Same scenario. The only difference is all 3 of them, they were not moving fast enough because Angie K, if you notice, she got up and she just stood there in front of the cameras posing like this. Are you sure that you want to get rid of me? I mean, look at me, I'm beautiful. Dana, she was pretending like her cape got caught onto the couch like, Andy, I can't move. My cape is caught onto the couch. Maybe I should just stay here for the remainder of the reunion. What do you think? Angie H, she goes over to Heather who's crying and she tells her, oh, Heather, are you crying? Come over here. Give me a hug. Give me a hug. No, wait, hold on. Before you touch me, 1 second. Cameraman, over here. Get this on footage. I'm about to hug Heather. Yeah, I'm about to hug her. Oh, Heather, come over here. Okay, now you can hug me. Come over here. Come over here. Oh, no, hug me tightly. Hug me tightly. Yeah, maybe Andy won't notice that I'm still on stage. I'm like, if all 3 of you losers just don't get off stage now. Supposedly, allegedly, I think that all 3 of them have been fired, even though all 3 of them have never been hired to begin with. But I think all 3 of them are not coming back for next season. So, woohoo! I think that this is the last time that we will see all 3 of them. So, goodbye, Charlie's lame-ass angels. So they get off. So then Andy, he proceeds to start off with Whitney, and he was just like, okay, Whitney, so we're going to talk about your healing journey this whole entire season. Can you tell me about that and where you are with that now? So Whitney, she goes on to talk about this healing journey, and she was just like, I mean, yeah, it has been a big process, Andy, this whole entire season, because I've been trying to heal a lot from my healing journey, and it's not really too easy for me to heal. I didn't appreciate how Heather, she's right over here, put her in timeout, because because I didn't appreciate that she thought that I was using my healing journey to try to garner attention on me. And then Heather, she goes on to say, well, Whitney, I never meant to say that, you wanted this whole, you put that all out there for attention. Even though at the time I do agree with Heather though, because this whole healing journey that Whitney's talking about, I feel for her and I get it to a certain extent. But at the same time, when she mentioned it on episode 2 or 3, when they were on the first cast trip, she said that whole cast trip was for Jen. It was for Jen. It was for Jen. But then she kind of made it about herself the entire time. So I was kind of with Heather. But Heather went on to say, no, I apologize. It was never my intention to make it seem like that you were trying to, come off from a needy type of point of view. So then Andy, I believe he asked both of them, so can there ever be a bad weather reunion? Whitney, she goes on to say, yeah, I kind of want a bad weather reunion because I really like Heather. She's my bestie, and we used to watch the Teletubbies together, and now I don't have anybody to watch. But Andy, he goes on to tell Heather, so wait, Heather, why are you not being able to forgive Whitney? Why can you forgive her, but you're so quick to forgive Jen? The questions that we all want to know. Heather, she goes on to say that she holds Whitney to a higher standard as opposed to Jen, she's all the way over here. Oh, well, over here. Well, she's all the way down there. And it's just so crazy because it's just like she'll let Jen do whatever, say whatever, do whatever to her. But Whitney, she messed up this one time. And yeah, it might not be forgivable right away. But she messed up this one time. And yeah, you want to crucify her. You don't want to forgive her. You want to body slam her against the window. I still haven't forgotten about that, Heather. So it's so crazy. Like she's like the standards are so all over the place for Jen. I just don't understand what she sees in Jen that she is just like, she's willing to bend her back for her. I don't get it. Whitney, she goes on to say, yeah, Heather, I just don't really get why I'm held to a different standard than Jen. I mean, Jen, she could say whatever she wants about you and you're just going to be forgiving. And that's that. Like, I have never called you a liar, Heather. Heather, she goes on to say, yeah, no, I don't appreciate you calling me a liar about this whole, Lisa sucking so-and-so for those jazz tickets. And then Meredith, she manages to get her 2 words in and she tells Heather, Heather, yeah, nobody really likes to be called a liar. Heather, she goes on to say that she never put those rumors out there and she doesn't appreciate that. If she stands on something that she doesn't want to talk about, she doesn't want to agree with Whitney that's her, that's her point of view. They start talking about how Jen was talking so badly about Heather when they were all in the bathtub and how Jen was saying that Heather was a friend to her 60% of the time and that she was so glad that she's not in charge of the whole San Diego trip. So Andy, he asks Heather, so Heather, how did it feel watching the whole entire scene back? Heather, she goes on to deflect the whole situation back over to Whitney. She was just like, I just, Whitney, she also said bad things about me though. I'm like, Heather, you refuse to hold Jen accountable for anything. Like, yes, we get it. Whitney, she also kind of said some shady things towards you, or at least alluded to, but Jen said mostly bad things about you. Lisa, she also jumps in it, and she was just like, Heather, but she also texted me saying, oh, F Heather, F Heather, F Heather. And that was that. They even had the screenshots of the text messages. But Heather, she was just like, no, I don't remember that. I just remember that Whitney, she talked bad about me and that was it. I'm like, that is crazy. But eventually she goes on to say that, yeah, she did feel some type of way that she heard Jen talking bad about her and that was that. And I'm just like, Heather, all right. So Andy, he continues on with Heather by telling her, so it feels like, this season you had a lot on your plate, like something was going on with you mentally. And then it killed me when Heather, she started listing out all the issues this entire season. I'm like, what kind of show are we watching? Because she goes on to say, it was a lot because we were dealing with scamming, money laundering, murder. We were dealing with trauma. We were trying to bury a body. We were escaping the police. We were trying to rob a bank. And I'm like, wait a minute. I am telling you, this Housewives show in Salt Lake City, they are so scandalous. Heather goes on to say, yeah, I was dealing with a lot when writing my new book. My new book, Bad Mormon. You could get it on Amazon Prime on February 15 and promo code Bravo TV, and you could get a 50% discount. And it was just a lot writing that book. It really brought out a lot of emotion. So Meredith, she goes on to, defend Heather. She tells everybody, well, you know what, Andy, a lot of emotions were going on through all of us this entire season. We were all going through a lot, especially with Jennifer Shaw supposedly going to jail. We were all going through a lot mentally and emotionally. And sometimes it's very hard to deal with those emotions and mentally.
mentally, sometimes we're not really there all together.
And I'm like, okay, Meredith, again, we're gonna get on to you in a second. So then the husbands come out, and notice how they were all sitting right next to their wives, as opposed to how they typically do it. They're usually sitting right behind them, right behind the couch. This time they're like, well, we barely have a cast, so we have enough space for everybody on the couch. And Heather is much better than I am, because I am not sitting on that couch when everybody else on this set has a husband sitting right next to them and I'm just sitting here by myself. Absolutely not. I would have told Andy, oh, my stomach, I don't know, I think I had something for lunch. I think I have diarrhea. You know what? I'm gonna go to the bathroom and then I'm gonna come back when the husbands are gone. Or make something up, or at least have a blow-up doll or something sitting next to me, like a little stuffed animal. Anything, but I'm not going to be on that stage by myself. I am sorry, but all the husbands, they all look nice. I think my favorite look was Whitney's husband. I love the all black that he had on. John, John was Johning. Zeph, he looked nice. He has this mullet thing going on, and I don't know how to feel about it. So then Andy, he starts off with him, and he was just like, so Zeph, I know that you have this man crush for this man named Brett Forth or something like that. How's that going? He says that he had no luck with him, and he was just like, well, maybe I need a new man crush. Andy, you're looking pretty good yourself. And you know Andy went home so happy. He was probably at home after this whole reunion film, looking at himself in the mirror like, you know what? I'm gonna message him tonight. But then he starts off by talking to Whitney's husband, and he goes on to say, so Whitney's husband, I forgot what his name was. Whitney's husband, we'll call him that. So Whitney's husband, when you got fired, I see your look or whatever. Unemployment looks really nice on you. And I'm like, wow, Andy, that was very shady. And then Whitney's husband, he was just like, oh yeah, this is my unemployment beard. And I'm like, that is nothing to be proud of. But he goes on to ask him, so when you got fired, did they mention anything about the little risque scene that you filmed with Whitney? And then they flash back to that last season, and I completely forgot how that went. The whole chocolate thing, they were covered, like they really took it there, right? And then Whitney, you hear her moaning and screaming like, ah, and I'm like, ugh. We could have skipped this entire scene. Like, we really didn't need to know that. So then Whitney's husband, he goes on to say that, yeah, he just got fired, but they never mentioned anything about the show. But we all know that was the reason. So he moves it back over to Zeph. So Zeph, that bathtub scene with you and Meredith, and her playing with your taint and everything, do you think that that's too much? Like, what are you not willing to film? Zeph, he's pretty open with anything. Meredith, she also defended it by saying, well, I mean, I wasn't necessarily touching my husband's taint. I just kind of just put my toe on my feet next to his butt cheek just so it could hold me up while we were in the bathtub. I didn't think that people were going to blow it out of proportion the way they are now and saying that it's a sexy scene. And I mean, I do like when Meredith is in the bathtub. I feel like that's kind of like her signature now. So then Andy, he starts asking John and Zeph if they could still continue being friends, even though their wives kind of like hate each other at this point. They're both like, yeah, we could still be cool. Zeph is just like, yeah, I know a lot of people that I'm friends with that they don't necessarily talk to Meredith. So it's possible. And I mean, with me, if my husband was to talk to somebody else's husband that I don't get along with, yeah, no, that's not happening. Like I said, if I hate the bitch and the bitch's husband, then we both hate them. And that's that, So then John, he goes on to say that he didn't appreciate that joke that Meredith made with Zeph about, I think Meredith had like 50 cents or something in her hand. And she was just like, oh, look, I have more money than Lisa. I did not know she made that joke, but he didn't like that. So Seth, he was just like, oh, it was just a joke. It wasn't nothing serious, but I'm sorry. He owned up to it. Meredith, she goes on to say, well, yes, I understand, John, exactly what you're talking about. It was just a little playful joke. I didn't think it was anything serious, but I do apologize if it hurts your feelings. And I'm like, Meredith, of course, it's just a playful joke when it comes to you, and it's something not to be blown out of proportion. But let Lisa say anything about you and saying, oh, look, I have more money than Meredith. Look, I have 50 cents here, more than her. I'm pretty sure that you will, you will be so upset with Lisa, you will throw a tantrum and start crying or whatever. So cut it out. Lisa, she goes on to say, well, yeah, Meredith, I just didn't appreciate you, Zev, exactly that, when she was talking bad about me, you didn't put a stop to it. My husband, John, he would have put a stop to it. He would have told me, stop talking about Meredith, and that's that. So then Andy, again, he pulls a Scala from Potomac, and he was just like, oh, well, okay, well, thank you for the husbands for coming out. We're going to go to commercial. And I'm like, what? They were literally only on stage for 2 seconds, and that was that. I mean, You know, as soon as I would have gotten off stage, I would have went back to Macy's and returned my tuxedo that I rented. So then Andy tells them, why do you think that Jen pled guilty now? They all said that it was a pride thing, it was an ego thing. Jen, obviously, she thought she was never gonna get caught from doing these crimes. And now that the walls were closing in on her, she thought that it was gonna be a horrible uphill battle. So she thought, well, you know what? Let me just confess and go to jail. That'll be easier. So then Andy, he moves his focus over to Meredith, and then this is where Meredith, she takes off her high heels and she puts on her flip-flops because she started flip-flopping all throughout this entire reunion, or the remaining of the reunion, and he tells her, so Meredith, I saw on season 2, you could not stand being around Jen, you could not stand being near her, you couldn't even breathe the same oxygen as Jen because you thought she was a criminal, she was going to jail, she was doing a bunch of crimes, but now all of a sudden your tune has changed. Now you're like, oh, you know, I'm Team Jen. Team Jen, free Jen all of a sudden. Why is that? Meredith, her excuse was,
Well, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, Jennifer Shaw, she is still a human being. She is still a person. And you know what? I can't really be too much on her because I'm not the judge or the jury or the executioner. I have to hear it out. And, you know, if she does get, you know, criminated for these crimes and she does go to jail, then maybe in the future we can have a conversation between me and her. But right now, you know, I'm kind of in a lost headspace right now. And I'm like, Meredith, it's not making sense. And Andy, he was kind of pissed too. He was not letting off Meredith. He continued pressing her on. He was just like, but Meredith, I'm just so confused because last season you kept saying, oh, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. You accused her of stealing some stuff from your store as well. And now all of a sudden you're okay with this. I'm not getting it. So Meredith, obviously she was also getting pissy that he wasn't letting it go. Lisa, she was just like, yeah. I'm like, Lisa, be quiet. I want to know. So then Meredith, she went on to say, I mean, you know, with Jennifer Shaw, you know, again, like I said, she is still a human being. And, you know, I always root for the underdog.
And right there, Meredith, you have completely lost me. What? The underdog. You're saying that Jen is the underdog. Like, what? Like, there are victims out there who got scammed from Jen for all this money, and now you're saying that Jen is the underdog. I just don't understand how you have Jen Shah and underdog in the same sentence, and then you want to victimize Jen as if she's the one that's, you know, like, oh, you know, boo-hoo, like, I'm the victim in all of this. No, but she continued on, and she was just like,
you know, she's still a human being at the end of the day. And you know what? She called me one day and, you know, it was just really bad because I didn't want her to,
you know, basically off herself. And that was the reason why Meredith was just like, well, you know what? I'm going to hop onto Team Jen because she is still a human and I don't want her to go through that. And I mean, I get that. I do get it. I understand that. But it's just like, Meredith, you said so much about Jen last season, and just because, and I'm not going to say just because, but because she went through this whole situation of her, you know, possibly wanted to, you know what, herself, now all of a sudden it's just like, oh, she's the underdog. She's the underdog. Like, I do get it. I feel for Jen, and I don't want her to do any of that and everything or go through that. But I mean, she did all these crimes to herself. You know, again, you want to say that she's the underdog, but the victims, I'm pretty sure that most of the victims or half the victims or however many victims, that they probably wanted to do the same thing that Jen wanted to do herself to themselves. And then you feel no compassion for them, but yet you want to give it all to Jen. I was just so confused. Lisa, she went on to jump in again and she was just like, yeah, Meredith, I'm just so confused because in Belle, you know, you were basically bragging when you were in the bathtub when Mary walked in on you. You were basically bragging that, oh, you know, I basically knew that she wasn't innocent. Like, are you surprised? And then we see the flashback of you in the infamous bathtub. She also goes on to say, oh, well, you know the one, it was just a one-time thing. You know, I slipped up with Jen one time. And I'm like, no, you did not. It was multiple times all throughout season 2. But you know what? I'm not going to list out all the problems, Meredith. Like, it is what it is at this point. You're also delusional as Heather. Like, this whole cast is delusional. So then that was that. Eventually, Andy was just like, okay, Meredith, I'm not understanding what's going on. Are you still going to be friends with her? Like, that's the thing. Meredith went on to say, well, you know what? We'll have to see once I find out if she's going to jail. And even then, I'm still not sure. Basically, it's going to be a yes. And I'm like, she's basically a Heather too at this point. And then Andy, he was just like, wait, so are you scared that she might say something about you? Is that why you're trying to protect her? And I'm like, you know, I have a feeling that Jen, she really has all these women on this cast. Like, like wrapped around her finger, and she probably has so many skeletons on them, and maybe that's it. But Meredith was just like, no, because then if that was the case, I wouldn't have gotten into it with her the way I did last year on season 2. But then again, Meredith, you could have told her something from then up to this point that she probably knows on you. So I don't know. I just feel like at this point, Jen has something on Heather and Meredith, because this is ridiculous. So then I believe they started talking about Sharif, Coach Shaw, which is Jen's husband. They're like, so do you think that he was in on anything? Whitney, she was just like, yeah, I kind of thought that he was in on it because he's kind of too good to be true. And I'm like, wait a minute, just because your husband is broke and unemployed doesn't mean that Coach Shaw can't be who he really is. Now, do I think that he's guilty in all of this? Yes. I'm sorry, just like Erica Jane was dragged for 2 seasons, Coach Shaw, he needs to be dragged too, because I do honestly feel like he knew something. Like, isn't he a lawyer? There's no way that he's a lawyer, and he had no idea that what was Jen doing in his household or whatever. Or like when Lisa said, oh, they filed their taxes or whatever. I'm pretty sure that he knows something. It's just now he was just like, you know what, Jen? Just go to jail, because then you're going to drag me along with you. So just go, move. And that was that. But I do agree with that. And then I believe he moved it over to Heather. He was just like, so Heather, are you still going to be there for Jen? If she goes to jail, Heather, were we surprised? She went on to say, oh, well, you know what? If she does go to jail, we've been friends for this long, so I might as well, am I going to visit her? It depends where. And I'm like, Heather, please save us the BS and the lies. You know that you're going to be the first one. As soon as they open a prison every morning, you're going to be there right there, bright and early with a bagel in your hand for Jen. You're going to be putting money on her books. You're going to be sending her care packages. You're going to be writing letters to her every single day. You're probably going to try to sneak a phone into the jail cell somehow to her. So please cut the crap, cut it out. And then I think he goes over to Lisa. He was like, Lisa, what do you think about this whole situation? Lisa, again, with her tearless cry, she went on to say, well, you know what? Me and Jen, I'm starting to get emotional again. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. Somebody bring me a Kit Kat. Bring me a Kit Kat and a Diet Coke, please. And a Sprite and a Pepsi. But the thing is, it's just, she really wrapped me in. I do love Jen, even though she tried to fight me on the bus season 2. And, she tried to strangle me and everything. But, I do love her. And I do remember all the moments that she had with my children. It's really heartbreaking. And I'm like, Lisa, she has you fooled too. But I guess Jen has one of those personalities that attracts you, even though she's toxic. I guess it's fun. Eventually, Andy, he asks all of them, so what is one moment this season that you regret? Heather, of course, she's gonna bring up her black eye situation again. And I'm like, Heather, we just dropped that at the beginning of this part of the reunion. Let's just let it go at this point. But she goes on to bring it up, and she was just like, I really regret after the whole Marilyn Monroe night, I regret not going to sleep right away. Instead, I had to get blacked out drunk and embarrass myself on TV, and now I have a black eye. I do regret it. But I don't want to talk about the black eye situation anymore, but I do regret that whole night forgetting the black eye situation and not talking about my black eye situation that I did not want to discuss because I just didn't want to talk about my black eye anymore. But here I am bringing up my black eye. So that's what I regret, getting the black eye. I'm like, Heather, please be quiet. And then Andy, he added salt to the wounds because he tells Heather, yeah, because you felt really ashamed of that, right? So then he moves it over to Whitney. Whitney goes on to make it about Heather. She was just like, yeah, I really regret, my fallout with Heather because we were bad weather. But I love that I've been healing a lot this whole entire season. I healed, but I kind of regret spreading these rumors about Lisa and Meredith when I was drunk. I'm like, what kind of regrets are these? But she goes on to say that she also wishes that Heather's regret could have been about their friendship, about them kind of falling out. Heather, she just looked at Whitney like, okay. So then we move it over to, I believe, Lisa. Lisa goes on to say, well, I don't really regret much, but it's just let me see. I guess the way Jen treated me, because Jen, I wish that me and her would have had boundaries because she just treated me like shit sometimes. But then other times she was pretty cool. She was fine. We actually hung out. So then we move it over to Meredith. Meredith, she goes on to say, well, you know what? My biggest regret here is just, honestly, I should have never spoke about certain people. Lisa Marlowe, I should have never said too much about her, but that's that. I regret it. Next time I'm going to watch my mouth, and that's that. So then Andy, he was just like, okay, let's give it up for a good season. I'm like, good. So So then I believe he has somebody come out with a cake and champagne flutes for everybody. And I'm like, ooh, the Real Housewives of Potomac. So then this cake, it has 2 candles in it, right? I guess they were gonna celebrate like Lisa and Meredith's friendship or their birthday or whatever, but one candle is pink and the other one is red. So both of them are standing on one side of the cake. Meredith, she tells Lisa, "Wait, can I go on that side? I like the pink candle." Lisa, she was just like, "Oh yeah, of course. Like this side is my good side anyway." So they switched sides, and they actually had a little playful moment. Meredith was just like, "Oh well, you see, this is a moment right here to start our friendship again." It was cute to see. I really hope that for season 4 they do go back to being best friends or at least close friends. I like seeing them interact with each other. And that was that. They blew COVID all over the cake and everything and blew the candles out. And that was that. They toasted to the champagne and boom, the season is officially over. I thought we were at the very end. We were going to get, oh, by the way, you thought the season was over. Well, no, we have a part 3 reunion. I was so scared. I'm like, please let it be over. Please let it be over. Please let it be over. But you know, overall, was the season trash? I mean, no, it was still pretty good. I just did not like the 3 extras, like Angie, the Angies and Dana. All 3 of them were completely useless. I didn't feel for any of them. But other than that, you know, the cast was pretty good. It was good. I mean, again, compared to season 2, I think that's the issue what I have and what probably the audiences has, because season 2 was so good. Like it literally set the standard. I don't even know if they could ever top that. And then we move on to this and it was just kind of like, it wasn't bad, but at the same time, coming off the hype from that, it wasn't as good as that. But overall, you know, at the end of the reunion, usually I say who should go or who should stay. I feel like they should all stay. They're all a chaotic cast and they do have good chemistry with each other and they have history now, obviously. So I feel like they should all come back and add 3 new wives. And I think that Mary has officially been announced by People Magazine that she is going to be coming back for season 4 as a friend of, not an official housewife. So I'm curious to see where that goes because she was hilarious. But I don't want them all counting on Mary to like make this show, because just because Mary is coming back doesn't mean that it's going to be a good season. She has her good moments. She's hilarious, but they also need to, you know, add extra wives. Like I believe that they actually have 2 wives now already casted. I'm not sure. And one of them, she looks like Heather in like a different way, but they look very alike. So that's going to be interesting to see. But overall, I did enjoy the season. You know, Salt Lake City is one of my favorites. So I'm looking forward to season 4, possibly season 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All the way until Jen gets out of jail and then she comes back for season 14. Let me know what you all thought about this entire season and this entire reunion down in the comments. And thank you to every single one of you for taking time out of your day to just watch my reviews, to watch this entire season with me and leave your comments, your love, your sweet words, your kind words, and sharing your opinions about each episode with me every other week. I truly appreciate that. And I appreciate your time. So until we meet again, you know, we'll see each other in Potomac. Bye, everybody. Mwah.